chỉ càng mà lư phà thì xa là khói bá rồi.
Пожалуйста, послушайте объявление. Тех из вас, кто пришел по приглашениям, просим занимать места в специально отведенном секторе перед сценой. Все остальные могут садиться на свободные места в зале. По окончании учений просим занимать места согласно купленным билетам на программу «Гармония мира не знает границ». Пожалуйста, отнеситесь к этому с должным вниманием. Если вы заняли какие-то места на учениях под Дзogchen, то второй части вам, скорее всего, придется их освободить, потому что придут люди с билетами на свои места. Приносим извинения за неудобства. Это связано с решением Его Святейшества изменить формат встречи. Также в центре зала есть большие боксы для подношения в фонд Далай Ламу. Вы можете сделать подношение. Что касается веб-трансляции, она идет на этой же линии, на русском языке, на английском языке она будет на dalailama.com.
Labrīt, dārgie draugi! Lūdzu, noklausieties paziņojumu. Tie, kas no jums ir atnākuši ar ielūgumiem, lūdzu ieņemt vietas, paredzētās vietas tieši pretī skatuvēji. Visi pārējie lūdzu sēdieties brīvajās vietās zālē. Pēc pirmās sesijas beigām lūdzu tos, kas ir iegādājušies biļetes uz programmu Pasaules harmonijai nav robežu, tad ieņemt vietas tās, kas ir paredzētas jūsu biļetēs. Vēl tie, kas vēlas veikt ziedojumus Dalai Lamas fondam, lūdzu griezieties pie volontieriem. Paldies!
So that was the mandala offering. It's ground and adorned with perfumes, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the moon, and the sun, and the full continent. I imagine it's a Buddha filled and offer it to you. The salutation verse to the salutation to the mother of all the Buddhas, the Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom. Gate gate para gate para gate para sangate bodhi. That gate gate para sangate bodhi. So. Oh yeah. So then, I pay homage to the Gautama, who, moved by his compassion, taught the holy Dharma to rid us of all distorted views. So today, we are going to go through hitting the essence in 3 words, but I first want to give the background to this teaching. In India, there didn't exist what are known as Nyingma and Sarma, New Translation School, and Old and New Translation Schools. But in Tibet, since the time of the great translator Rinchen Sangpo, what is known as the later phase of the dissemination of Buddha Dharma in Tibet came, and then before that was called the old dissemination of the teaching of the Buddha in Tibet. And regarding the old translation school of the Nyingma school, there is the categorization of 9 vehicles. So first are the 3 vehicles based on the Four Noble Truths, and then the 3 vehicles of outer Tantra, and then the 3 vehicles of the inner Tantra, which are called mastering. Mastery of the method, And so in the first three vehicles, what are taught are those of the antidotes, which are the temporary antidotes, specific antidotes to the negative emotions. So in connection with the three trainings, and we use the different specific antidotes. And so within the three vehicles, there are those of the Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhayana, and the Bodhisattvayana. And then with regard to Tantra, or secret Mantrayana, there are these outer Tantras, which are threefold. They're threefold Tantras. So these are called the Gadubrikje, which means the practice of austerity in the Vedic tradition. And so we have the Kriya, the Upa, and Yoga Tantras, so which deal with the practices such as taking a bath, washing, and then also practicing fasting and so forth, which are to do with those of the practice of penitence. And so usually when we talk about the tantras, we have the Kriya, Charya, and Yoga tantras. But in the Nyingma tradition, they use Kriya, Upa, and Yoga tantras. And then the inner tantras constitute those of the three tantras. And so these are called the mastery of the method vehicle. So what that means is, regarding the view of the wisdom of emptiness, the view of emptiness, it is already taught in the first three vehicles. Now here, the mastery of methods vehicle refers to the profundity or superiority of the subjective mind that is used to realize emptiness. And so when we talk about the profound or profundity and peaceful, and also free from fabrication, there are, regarding the fabrication, there are those of the fabrications such as the generic image fabrication, and then those of the multiplicity, the conventionality, and then that of the object of negation in connection with emptiness. And so in the Dzogchen terminology, the grosser states of mind are also taken as those of the elaborations. So of course, when you are in the full absorption, direct absorption on emptiness, this object of negation also is no more there in your view. But the mind that we are talking about here is not just the temporary gross state of mind, but having seized those of the temporary adventitious states of mind, then the innate luminous mind is used to realize emptiness. And therefore, from this actually comes the profundity of the practice. And so here mastery refers to when you actually are able to develop this innate clear light mind into the path. Therefore, the temporary or the gross states of mind kind of cease, and therefore you have mastered this innate clear light mind to realize emptiness, and therefore it's called mastery. And then within this, there is the Maha, Anu, and Ati Yogas. Maha Yoga dealing with the developmental or the generation stage, the Anu Yoga doing with the completion, and then Ati Yoga dealing with that of the referring to the perfection, the complete perfection or the great perfection. So without having to resort to the coarser states of mind, you actually realize emptiness and stay absorbed in that. And with this clear light, the innate clear light mind itself, and therefore the mind being absorbed in emptiness, actually undermines our grasping at true existence. And then when the gross states of mind have ceased, and the innate subtle clear light mind manifests, and when the gross states of mind, of course, cease, and therefore they do not arise at that very moment when you are in the state of the clear light, the subtle clear light mind, and therefore in these 9 yanas are taught in the Nyingma tradition. So this actually is a very comprehensive way of putting the teaching of the Buddha. So Maha, Anu, and Ati within the inner tantras, all three use the innate subtle clear light mind, but during the generation stage of the Mahayoga, there is the practice of visualization of deities, oneself as deities, and then in the Anu Yoga, which is the vehicle of transmission, and then there is the practice of the completion stage. And so these practices are done by using gross state of mind. And so of the 9 vehicles that are taught, the 8 other vehicles from Anu Yoga down, they are called collectively Tegye Loi Trupta, which means the tenet of the 8 tenets or vehicles using the mind. Whereas in the Ati Yoga, you are introduced to the pristine awareness, and then, therefore, by using this innate clear light mind, you, because it uses that, it is called taking the wisdom or the pristine awareness into the path. And so Ati Yoga is that practice which uses, where you turn this, your practice, you take this innate clear light mind into the path, whereas the other 8 use the ordinary mind. And then within that, there is also the inner, outer, inner, and then the innermost traditions. And then during the Guhyasamaja Tantra, there is also a lot of distinction or categorization of the degrees of subtlety of mind. From this tradition, after having stopped the movement of what are known as the 80 conceptions, then you go through the 4 empty states, and then of which there is the all empty state of clear light. So in the Guhyasamaja, during the mental isolation, you are not actually using the grosser forms of mind and energy, but the subtle mind is used to realize emptiness. So when this can be, from there it seems, then we come to that of the in the Dzogchen tradition, the using the pristine awareness, the Rigpa, into the path. And in the Kala Chakra, there is mention of empty form, And in the texture is also has this kind of the reflection of the mind that arises in the form of the deity and so forth. So it is similar to that of the empty form taught in Kala Chakra. And so if you compare these different tantras, you will gain more profound understanding. So the unique characteristic feature of Dzogchen is these gross states of mind, while they are active, even while they are active, including the negative emotions, all of them are. These are states of consciousness, and therefore they have the clarity and awareness or cognitive nature. For example, if we have attachment or anger, we see things as attractive, or in the case of anger, unattractive and we have repulsion towards things. But the basic nature of cognition is there in both the states of mind, because without that you cannot actually cognize objects. And so in Dzogchen, in its pith instruction system, when an experienced, truly experienced master teaches a disciple whose karma and his aspirational prayers are ripened, while this student still has this active gross states of mind, there is within that wherein there is this clinging to apprehending objects, and then there is also the aspect of the mere cognition of the objects. So that mere clarity or luminous and awareness nature, when you are able to become aware of it and then sustain it in your meditation, then the grasping at objects, apprehending objects, is gradually kind of diminish. And so, therefore, this is why it is known as the Yeshe Lamche, which means taking the pristine awareness, the primordial wisdom into the path. So an analogy that is given usually is a sesame seed is permeated fully with the oil in it. And similarly, all states of consciousness or cognition are permeated with this the aspect of awareness. So in the Guhya Samaja Tantra, it is mentioned that all the gross forms of mind and wind energies dissolve into the clear light mind. And then when you arise from that state of clear light mind, there is the experience in the reversal order of those of the three, which are called blackish near attainment, then reddish increase, and then whitish appearance. And so it is said that all forms of mind, all the aspects, different types of mind, actually arise from that clear light mind, and they dissolve back into it, and therefore when you think along these lines, you can actually, it makes sense to say that all types of cognition are permeated by this Rigpa. In the Anuyoga Tantra, you use those of the energy with drops and channels and so forth, and then you, through that practice, you try to actually stop those of the flow of the gross forms of energy and mind, and then actualize this clay light mind. Whereas in the Ati Yoga, without using the gross states of mind in your meditation, you use that pristine awareness, primordial awareness nature of the mind itself in your meditation, and then sustain it in the meditation. And therefore, in the Dzogchen, in order to understand well what is known as Rigpa Sangtel, this pristine awareness, breaking through with this pristine awareness, I mean, it's important to, I mean, it would be helpful to understand what is taught in the, what is taught in the, I mean, what is stated here could actually help understand the Sarma tradition of the dissolution process and clear light mind and so forth, and then vice versa. And therefore, in Tibet, although we have the Nyingma and Sarma traditions, if you could follow a non-sectarian tradition by studying all these different traditions, it would be really helpful. So I have mainly studied the Sarma tradition, like those of the writings of the 17 Nalanda masters and so forth. And then I also mentioned it yesterday briefly, in the Kagyu tradition, Mahamudra also uses this clear light mind, taking the clear light mind into the path. In the Nyingma also, that is what is done. And then in the Sakya tradition, there is mention of Seltong Sungchok, which means union of the clarity and emptiness. So the clarity is that of the definition of mind, and then its nature is empty, and then you have the union of these two. And then that union is also said to be beyond expression. And so in the Gelug tradition, there is, in the Kagyu tradition, the Mahamudra, and then in the Gelug traditions, the union of bliss and emptiness, and so forth. And so, although there are different terms that are used, like in the Sakya tradition, Seldong Zinme, which means non-apprehension of the clarity and emptiness, and then in the Dzogchen, the clear light, this pristine awareness, and so. Dzogchen with the great perfection and so forth. If you really are well versed in the different traditions, then you will understand that they converge to the same point. And then in the Dzogchen tradition, there is also the term Chöchen Tetawa, which means the view of the object and then the view of the reality as it is. And therefore, these two refers to the two types of perhaps the negation which is implicative and negation which is not non-implicative. So here, you use the logical, the analysis called where the mind comes from, where it abides, and where it goes. And then through this kind of analysis, you actually move towards the understanding and insight into the nature, the final nature of the mind itself. In Dotuk Jingme Tembe Nyima's writing, who was actually writing his commentary on the Nyingma traditions by understanding the general structure of the Buddhism, like understanding those of the Madhyamaka tradition well, and also the logical tradition. So Khenpo Tsullo, who was a student of Dodo Jingme Tembe Nyima, his writings on Dzogchen were quite comprehensive, where he is able to actually bring all the different traditions and texts together by comparison, by comparing them. Otherwise, sometimes you find texts which may have to do with pith instructions, but they don't really tally well with the Madhyamaka and the epistemological treatises well. So in the Nyingma, the old translation school, The main source of the Nyingma tradition comes from Kunkin, the omniscient Longchen Rabjampa, he who wrote the 7 treasuries, and then the trilogy of ease and comfort, and others. So I have received the transmission, reading and explanatory transmission of the 7 treasuries from Trishik Rinpoche. So when I go to Nyingma's institutions of learning, I ask them to study Longchen Rabjampa's Trupta Dzu, the treasury of philosophical systems, because it helps to understand the import of the different philosophical schools. And then Yishi Dzu, the treasury of primordial wisdom, is very helpful to understand the teaching comprehensively. And then Damngak Dzu, the treasury of instructions, and then Shuying Dzu, that of the treasury of the Dharmadhatu. And so I have received these explanatory transmissions, and then also the trilogy of ease and comfort. So having received that, I have also done the 100-day meditation that you have to do on the Semying Yelso, the ease and comfort in the nature of the mind. And then I also received transmission of the Yönden Dzu by Jingmi Lingpa, and then its commentaries, Namkin Shingta, and Denyi Shingta or something like that, the omniscient chariot, and then the omniscient 2 truths or something like that. So Alaksha Tendal Harampa, who was a great scholar of the Gelug tradition, so he has written many different texts, such as the commentary treatise on the reasoning called One and Many, to analyze emptiness. So, so these are used. Jigme Tempe Nyema seems to have read these texts, and they are really helpful to gain deeper understanding of the general teaching. So I also wish to say this as on the aside. So Je Rinpoche himself, the Master Tsongkhapa, received teachings from Lhodak, the great Mahasiddha of Lhodak, Namkha Gyaltsen by name, who was someone who had a direct vision of Vajrapani, and also received teachings. And so Je Tsongkhapa received teachings from him. And in Master Tsongkhapa's writing called Shulin Sergitenwa, the Rosary of Gold, which is an answer to the questions. So Lhodak Drupchen was taught by Manjushri himself. And so told that Je Rinpoche also had the special connection with the Nyingma tradition. And then Je Rinpoche also studied the Kagyu and Kadam traditions and Sakya. And so amongst his disciples, and from amongst his disciples, the omniscient Gyendun Drup, the first Dalai Lama, was also a non-sectarian. He received teachings from Dashi Namgyel or somebody. And then the second Dalai Lama, Gyendun Gyatso, was also non-sectarian. Then Sonam Gyatso, the third Dalai Lama, was also this non-sectarian. And the fifth Dalai Lama, which was well known, is well known. And then the 13th Dalai Lama also was well known for being the non-sectarian. And then in my earlier part of my life, I used to be I used to follow only the Gelug tradition, and then I had the wish to receive the teaching on the tantras, the essence of the Guhya Garbha, Guhya Garbha, the essence of the secrets. So there is this saying amongst the Gelugpas who follow the Gelug tradition strictly. They used to say that you cannot receive teachings as a Gelugpa because of myself propitiating Shugden, and therefore it is said that as a practitioner of Gelug, you cannot receive teachings of other traditions, particularly Nyingma tradition. And then later on, I found out that in the great fifth Dalai Lama's writings, it is mentioned that the Turgil was someone who was born from a wrong prayer, and then his nature is that of the perfidious spirit, and then his function, what he does, is that of harming the beings and teaching of the Buddha. And therefore, I had done a series of tests and in order to check whether I should follow the non-sectarian tradition or not. And then it showed that it was good to do so. And therefore, I received many teachings from Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, the late Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. And then from Trishu Rinpoche, I received teaching. So Kagye Namsom and so forth. And T. Yeshe Lama, the unsurpassed commentary, or guided teaching of the primordial guru, wisdom guru. And then later I received teachings from Trishu Rinpoche, as I mentioned earlier. And so, from the Khyentse Rinpoche, I received Guhya Garbha teaching, which is very good. The root text is the Guhya Garbha, and its commentary Rongsom Pandita's commentary on Kundu Jindil, the and Longchen Rinpoche's commentary also, Chokchu Minsel, eliminating the darkness in the 10 directions, and Dotup Jingmi Tembe Nyima also has an overview, a general explanation of the Guhya Garbha, which is very good, because he actually brings in the topics of Madhyamaka and also logic, the Pramana traditions as well. And then I also received another commentary from the Khyentse Rinpoche. So while I was propitiating Turgil, I didn't have religious freedom, because I was told that I cannot receive teachings of Nyingma tradition, only Gelug tradition I was doing. And so after that, leaving the practice, I got freedom, religious freedom. The people who are worshipping Turgil these days say that I actually hinder their freedom of religion. So, of course, I cannot practice Dzogchen that much, but just having a good understanding of it, and of course I do Vajrayakilaya practice. I have received teaching on the Sakya tradition of Lamde, the path and the fruits, and therefore I do practice on a daily basis Hey Vajra Tantra, and also receiving the path initiation and so forth. And then also I do that of Heruka practice, the 5 daily Heruka and so forth. And then Vajrayogini, which also comes from that of the Sakya tradition. And also I do Gurukula, and then also a short practice of Vajrakilaya. And then with regard to the Kagye, the 8 Herukas, I have done the necessary retreat on the basis of the 5th Dalai Lama's text, Kagye Chidil. And then there is also a commentary by Rinzin the Vidyadhara Pema Tinle, where he says, though you may let the other teachings of the Nyingma tradition diminish or decline, but do not let the Kagye decline. And so it really was inspiring to me, this phrase or statement. So if we have to talk about the different traditions on the basis of hats, then my hat is rather multicolored. There is white and red, the red, yellow, and so forth. So in India, there was lots of arguments amongst the different philosophical traditions. But in Tibet, what happened is we say that this is Nyingma, Sakya, Geluk, and Kagyu, Chonang, and so forth. Although we are all followers of the same tradition, which has the complete teaching of the Buddha, and we still make this kind of distinction, discriminate. It's important for us to have the deep, sincere respect and with the pure, clear view or vision of the different traditions. So it's important for us to understand the different traditions and develop the respect for all the different traditions. So I just really wanted to say this. So this text, that hearing that essence in 3 words, has its roots in Dzogchen. So Tekchok Dze and Chuying Dze, the treasury of Mahayana and the treasury of Dharmadhatu, are the main texts amongst Longchen Ramchampa's 7 treasuries. So I have the commitment to read that of the treasury of Dharmadhatu, even if I'm able to read a few lines from it. So I'm just reading the first chapter of this treasury of Dharmadhatu. So there's mention of the nature, essence, and the expression. So nature being the primordial purity, and essence being spontaneity, and then expression being that of the unobstructedness. And so in the Nyingma tradition, there is also the term that is used, which is the Yesangyepa, which means primordially enlightened. And also in the in Haya Vajra Tantra, there is mention of such word, and also in Kala Chakra, Lagu Tantra or somewhere, it is also mentioned, a similar term is mentioned. So in the Hayas Yoga Tantra text also, there is such a term, which in the Dzogchen tradition is called the primordial enlightenment. And what that refers to is that the basic nature of the mind has never been tainted by any of the defilements in its intrinsic nature. And because we have this basic nature of the mind, the luminous, innate luminous nature of the mind, therefore there is possibility to overcome all our defilements and thereby become a fully enlightened being, which means you are free from all the defilements. And therefore, that is possible because of that basic, the primordial enlightenment. So the highest instruction is called that of the instruction of the Dzogchen. So when we talk about putting effort, we use our mind, the ordinary or the afflicted or the mind, whereas in the Dzogchen, you don't use that as such, but you actually maintain that awareness of the pristine awareness. But that doesn't mean you should actually just have thoughtlessness. That doesn't mean it. Hedewa, as it will come later in the text that we are going to go through, in the hitting the three essence in 3 words, there is the term Hedewa, which is not what we are aiming at. So Longchen Ramjampa exhorts to listen to this teaching. So this spontaneous mind, which is this clear light or the luminous nature, so its nature is primordial purity, primordially pure, as it is mentioned in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, whatever term you may use, and its nature, essence is unobstructed. So, which means spontaneous essence. The essence is spontaneous. From within that clear light, innate clear light mind of each individual, all our experiences arise from there, and also they dissolve back into it. And the Buddhahood also is attained on the basis of that. And so while its nature the essence is that it doesn't have any inherent existence, yet all the impure and pure realms also arise from this. So without wavering from this basic reality, so although all the samsara and nirvana arises from this basic clear light, it never wavers from it. This. Please listen to His Holiness giving the transmission. So that is the general explanation of the Rigpa. So all sentient beings in the 6 realms of existence, as well as the bodies of the Buddha, the speech and the mind, are not there apart from this basic clear light nature of the mind. So the term ye bab means that the basic nature of the mind, which of course it's actually empty, and there with regard to emptiness there is xiantong, extrinsic or other emptiness, which of course we can actually understand, because in the Guhyasamaja there is mention of the all empty nature, which is the state which is actually free from the first 3 empty states. And therefore, that is the other emptiness. So from the point of view of the subjective mind, it is other emptiness. Whereas by looking at its ultimate nature of emptiness, then the mind also is empty of itself. So self-emptiness. So otherwise, sometimes we say, oh, that person is the proponent of Xiantong philosophical view, and then there is kind of a jeering or looking down upon it, such practitioners. And of course, there are people who follow the different traditions. Even in the Garden or the Gelug tradition, there are people who do not really hit home to what they are actually trying to propound. So Tangya Robedoji says, if you are not really able to hit the essence, hit home to that reality, the final reality of things, this mother, which he refers to, the emptiness of the mind, may run away from you. So some Geshes of the Gelug tradition seems to think that there is something when you try to explain the nature of the mind as being miluwa, which means incontrovertible, freshly incontrovertible, which is a definition of valid cognition. They actually seem to hold on to something in the mind as an essence of being that incontrovertible. From the mind itself, but that's not there. So of course, when you talk about valid cognition, you also have to understand that according to the Prasangika Madhyamaka tradition, the even a valid cognition, which is valid in relation to its object, is a mistaken consciousness, mistaken cognition, because of being tinged by the appearance of independent existence in things. And therefore, in the Prasangika Madhyamaka philosophy, what is rejected is that of an objective, independent objective existence in things, whatever. So things arise like an illusion, although they are empty of any inherent existence. And therefore, the primordially flowing nature, which is the nature of emptiness, so there's no contrition in there, no contrivance. So from the point of view of this clear light nature, innate clear light nature of the mind, when you actually look from the perspective of this innate clear light mind, there's no samsara and nirvana as such. Therefore, it mentions that samsara is the perfect, all good, excellent, and nirvana is all excellent. And we, and myself and others, are also all excellent. So this now relates to the Madhyamaka view. So when Dzogchen talks about chewing, it also thinks about the subjective mind, the clear light mind, and also that of the Madhyamaka view of emptiness. So you have to think along both the lines, not only thinking about the Madhyamaka presentation of emptiness, but also the subjective clear light mind. You need to take both together. So from that point of view, it says that nobody is mistaken or so there's no liberation, and this is the thought or the import of the ultimate or the primordial purity. And so, whether from the point of view of the emptiness, which is the object clear light, and then the subjective clear light, subjective mind, which is the clear light nature of the mind. So then you talk about Riktong Yerme, which means inseparability or indivisibility of the cognition or awareness and emptiness. So this is the first chapter of the Treasury of Dharmadhatu, which is the chapter is named as Kode Yingle Mayupa, which means unwavering from the samsara and nirvana, unwavering from this basic reality. Now let's go through the other text. So the comment. So it's already 11:30. So I'll just go through the root text. Homage to the Lamas. So the uniqueness of wise, glorious monarch, the three keys penetrating the core. So here the text mentions the view, meditation, and conduct. And so in relation to these three, it mentions the Lamas, Longchen Rabjam, Khenze Rizir, and Gewe Nyugu. And so when someone has these experiences, then one could actually attain and become the fully enlightened Buddha based on this primordial Buddha. So even if you are not able to, within one lifetime, even if you're not able to do that, then at the time of when you go through the process of dying and you are in that state of the clear light, you could also be enlightened. Even if that doesn't happen, because of having left a very thick or dense imprint of the practice of Dharma, I mean, it could also help yourself. As we make prayer, may throughout my life after life, may I be able to meet with a perfect guru, a fully qualified guru, and so forth. Inseparably. And so when you are about to, in the process of dying, of course, it's up to a certain point, you have memory, and therefore if you are able to be mindful of these practices. And then in the Dzogchen tradition, there is a mention of a core emergent Rigpa. So that, I mean, within that meditation, when you use that, you don't let your mind stray towards those of the apprehension or the clinging nature, but just sustain the Rigpa itself, and then that makes a difference. So the view is the multitudinous great expanse and so forth. So when you do, just like in the Mahamudra practice, you don't let the past memories arise, and you don't anticipate the future, but just maintain the present moment of the mind, and within that, not allowing the mind to follow after the objects, appearances, and also the different thought processes, without having any kind of the clinging or grasping. You just maintain or retain your mind on the present nature or moment of that basic nature. So first, set your mind in a relaxed state, not emitting, not withdrawing, not without conceptuality. In this relaxed state of total absorption, suddenly shout "Pat," striking your awareness. Strike it strong, intense shot, emaho. So when introducing to the Rigpa, when a Lama says "Pat," it kind of breaks the mind from some kind of into this state where you are kind of astounded, and you are not thinking, you are not able to think what happened and what's going to happen, but just that state. And then from within that experience, you are introduced to the Rigpa. So without any kind of So this is used, the pet sound is used to forcibly cut the grasping. So of course this needs experience. And then it says nothing, but you are just astounded. So that is not Dzogchen as such. I had a talk with a Dzogchen practitioner in San Francisco. There was a big earthquake, and I met this person and asked him, what did you do? And he said, this person said, it was a very good opportunity to practice Dzogchen. So I think he was talking about, I mean, there was this kind of a astounding experience that he had, and that is not Dzogchen. Perhaps he was mentioning that. So that is the perhaps the initial stage to enter into the introduction of Rigpa. So when you are able to maintain that state for a while and sustain this meditation in this meditation, then you will see the Rigpa nature. So I had a talk with Trishu Rinpoche. Without having any thought, I asked, without having any thought, does it actually mean that you have Dzogchen experience? And Rinpoche said, while you have this state of Hedewa, you need also to have that breakthrough. That is the kind of laying the foundation for Dzogchen, but you need also to realize that the unborn nature of the mind, and for that, of course, you need to also have done the analysis that are used to establish emptiness, and therefore, Trishu Rinpoche mentioned that you also need that breakthrough. It is like a bird, the hawk, leaving its hawk. So the hawk is very alert of what's going on in the surrounding, and it should be like the hawk leaving its nest, which means that while you have the cognition of the object, you are not following after it, but you are actually maintaining your awareness and sustaining that cognition without the following after the apprehensions and objects. And then we talk about wisdom, dharmakaya, which is attained during Buddhahood. So there's no other mind than the mind that we have, the consciousness or the mind that we have now, which transforms into the mind of a Buddha by reducing and diminishing the negative emotions and defilements and so forth. And so this very Rigpa, which has that nature of breakthrough or Sangtel, is within ourselves. So astounding unimpeded penetration, inexpressible, identified innermost awareness of the truth body, its entity is identified within yourself, the first essential. So first, you need to really be introduced to and be able to recognize this basic nature of the mind yourself. So without which there is not going to be the Sangtel. Then, whether spreading out or abiding within, whether angry or desirous, happy or sad, at all times and occasions recognize and identified pristine wisdom. So we have the basic clear light nature, which is also termed as the basic ground level Dharmakaya. And from this, all the different varieties of objects, forms, sounds, states, and so forth, and also different thought processes arise. So all of them arise from this basic innate clear light mind. And when you are able to understand that at all times and occasions, recognize the identified pristine wisdom, truth body. And for those with prior acquaintance, the mother and child clear lights meet when an experienced Lama with experience is able to introduce that to you. And then you will see that all the different experiences arise from this basic clear light mind. And then what are known as the Shi and Shinang, the basic basis, and then the appearance of the basis, you will be able to see that how they can dissolve into this basic clear light nature. So in the Dzogchen practice, you are actually sustaining this Rigpa, this primordial, pure Rigpa itself, without using any other thoughts, be founded in the inexpressible state of quality of innermost awareness, stability, bliss, when luminosity and light should again and again be destroyed. Make this level of method and wisdom suddenly descend. Meditative equipoise and subsequent attainment do not differ. So in your actual meditation session, you are sustaining this vessel, this luminous, clear light mind. And then in your post-meditative session, whatever experiences you come across, you should still be able to maintain that and find that all these appearances, all these experiences are the expression of this basic clear light mind. In the seventh Dalai Lama's writing, it is said at the crossroad of these the perceptions, there is this hazy, deceptive nature, but do not be deceived by it. Do not think that things have any independent objective existence, but maintain your awareness on emptiness. So, usually, of course, whatever we see, hear, and experience appear as if there is some kind of independent objective existence from the side of the object. But once you realize emptiness, what you see is that these appearances are there, but they do not have any. And the appearances of objects are there, but these objects do not have any independent objective existence. So meditative equipoise and subsequent attainment do not differ. Continuously dwelling in the undifferentiable state, session and between session are not divided. However, so a Dzogchen practitioner has to, a true Dzogchen practitioner should live a hermit life, giving up all worldly affairs, and then Tögyel, and in this practice, you are able to have a certainty that everything is the reflection or the expression of the Rigpa. And as your experience of the Rigpa or the clear light mind becomes greater and greater, it's stronger and stronger, and you will be able to go into the Tögyel and So continuously dwelling in undifferentiated session, however, until attaining stability, meditation within having abandoned commotion is to be valued. Practice is done within division into sessions. At all times and occasions, maintain the display of just the truth body. Be firmly decided that there is none of other than this. Be determined on this alone. The second essential. So all the experiences should be understood. You should have this certainty that everything is the expression or for the yourself, the clear light mind. So when you think about attachment and anger, and actually look at it from the nature and perspective of the nature of that clear light mind, so at this time, number 3, within knowing the basic entity of all desires and hatred, pleasure and pain, and all adventitious conceptions, no subsequent connection is made. So all these experiences are the expression of or manifest from this clear light mind, and all the thought processes and all the appearances, when they are seen as the expression or the manifestation of the clear light mind, they become like writing on water. I mean, through identifying the truth body, the mode of release, they become like writing on water. And so as you gain more and more experience of the Rigpa itself, then you actually find that you have actually you are meeting like an old friend, so that you don't let your mind go astray with these negative emotions like attachment, anger, and so forth. So with uninterrupted self-appearance and self-release, whatever dawns is sustenance for naked, empty awareness. So because everything that appears to your mind is the expression or the manifestation of that clear light mind, whatever fluctuates is the royal sport of the truth body, self-purifying without a trace, la. The way they dawn is like earlier, but the modes of release are importantly different. Meditation without this is mistaken path. Those having this without meditation are within the truth body. Confidence is found upon the release, the third essential. So that is about the wisdom part now. That of the view of which is the wisdom. The view endowed with its 3 essential points is assisted by and assists meditation entwined with exalted knowledge and empathy, as well as general deeds of the victor's children. Even if the victor presences of the 3 times consulted together, they would have no guidance exceeding this. That revealer of the treasure of the truth body from the dynamism of innermost awareness raised this up as treasure from the vastness of the wisdom. Extractions of earth and stone differ from this. It is the final word of the Garab Dorje, final extract of the exalted mind of 3 transmissions, restrictedly intended for heart children. It is profound meaning, conversation of the heart. Heart conversation. Do not lose this essential meaning, essence of meaning. Do not neglect the instructions. So what you need to do is, having received the teachings, you need to reflect on it deeply and familiarize your mind over and over again with these teachings. Otherwise, they will not really bring any fruit. So the last 2 days, we had teaching on the general structure of approach of the Buddhism. So we had the teaching of the 17 Nalanda masters of and today's teaching is falls under the tantric teaching. And within that, the Nyingma tradition of the Sarma and Nyingma traditions, And this teaching comes under the category of 30, which means the guided teaching on the view. So the stages of mind, the 3 books of the stages of mind, I have received the transmission from Sakya Abbot Sangye Tenzin. And then the Concise Lamrim, the songs of spiritual experience, I received from Tadar Rinpoche, Ling Rinpoche, and Tichar Rinpoche. And then this text, hitting the key essence in 3 words, I have received from, I don't know, maybe I have received it from Digo Khenze Rinpoche. Then I had discussion on this text with through dialogue with Sakya Abbot, who is a very good scholar, and he's such an inspiring person, Kimbo Rinchen. So when I met him, I went through this text and had discussions on it. So it was as if like I had received the reading called guided instruction from him. So I hope the teachings of these 3 days would be of some benefit to you. And then we also did the ceremony for bodhicitta yesterday. And if you have time and if you're able to do take it, then you should, on a daily basis, recite the 7-limb practice and then do the ceremony, the verses that we used for bodhicitta yesterday. And then you should also study the general teaching of the Buddha, and then those of the Tantra, and then it will help you to understand the Dzogchen text as well. And so if you could do like this, it would be beneficial. Maybe we'll also meet in the afternoon. So we as human beings have this marvelous intelligence. Where do we use it in order to serve, help oneself and others, as well for temporary purpose, as well as long-lasting if we could use it constructively, it is very going to be good. Otherwise, to use it for destruction, making oneself and others unhappy and so forth, that's a waste. So thank you. Kundo sangbo teyan tishin te te da kunji je so da lo chin ge wa de da tam je ra do mo de shi be ge wa sangbo je je ra do mo wa ge de ma ku be na jo so je so me da san jo ge be chu go mo ba chu de be zhen jo jo je da pesh kha do da nga kha ge me da
Latvian Sungju Niva